So we'll start now. So if you could, Pastor Fran, just tell us a little about yourself and your ministry and what led you to us.
Well, my name is Fran Lehman, and I pastor a kind of small to mid-sized church at the edge of the Chicago suburbs that my wife and I and a few friends planted 30 years ago. And we're a church with an evangelical background, but we're just trying to reach all kinds of people. And we've always had a heart for outreach, but I don't know that we've ever been very good at it. Mm-hmm. But we have a beautiful church community that we see lives changed all the time, but we're just kind of at a place where we feel like what's the phrase that they use? The stars have kind of aligned. That's not the metaphor I'm looking for, but we're in a really good place, and we want to share that with more people. We want to invite more people into the beauty we see in the gospel and the possibility of a real, life-giving and transforming journey for them. And so we've been in a place for the last, I guess, as we started to come out of the pandemic, and we were just at this fresh place, and we said, how do we reach more people? And in the past, we've used a lot of postcard mailing kind of stuff, which has had some good effectiveness, mm-hmm. but we've not really known how to enter this sort of digital sphere. Mm-hmm. And that's been a little more intimidating. And prior to hooking up with you guys at Missio Digital, we were kind of trying to do that ourselves, but we realized that we just didn't really have the expertise for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we went looking. Who knows how to do this? Mm-hmm. Who knows how to do this and not for $1 million? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Pastor Fran. And when you reached out to us, what were some of your main sort of check boxes, or even concerns, rather, that you were hoping to kind of filter through when you were evaluating who you wanted to come alongside you and help you in accomplishing this?
Yeah. Well, I think, at least a handful of things. I was looking for someone who wouldn't box us in too much, who would let us be who we are as a church and let that come across in our, in what we were putting out there in front of people, because we think that there's, someone might think this is arrogant, but we think there's something beautifully unique about our church community in the area where we are, and we wanted to share that, and we wanted it to kind of come across, Another thing was that because I felt so uneducated about the digital space, about targeted social media and that kind of stuff, I wanted someone to explain to me a little more how it works. Mm-hmm. And I talked to, several other companies, organizations beside you guys, and I didn't feel like anybody really, they kind of said, this is what we're going to do for you. Mm. And if I said, well, how does that work? Or what exactly do you guys do to make that happen? Mm-hmm. You guys were the only ones who I felt like really explained that to me. And if I asked more detailed questions, you were like, oh yeah, sure, we can explain that to you. And mm-hmm. that made me feel like there was just, that you were more communicative. Mm. That you weren't just trying to sell me. You were trying to bring in my business, certainly, but help me understand how it works and how it can make a difference, so that I would feel confident in taking steps into that sphere. Yeah. And I literally, after I got off the phone the first time, after I got off the call with you guys the first time, I said to my wife, out of everybody we would talk to, I said, these are the guys. Mm. These are the people. Mm. Because they're going to talk to me. They're going to explain it to me. If I don't get something, they're not going to say, well, you don't get it because you're a pastor and not a computer programmer. They're going to try to help me understand it. And so, and I think too, just, with you and Brittany and everybody I've talked to, it has just felt personal. Mm. And I'm a pretty relational guy, so that checks a big box for me.
Yeah. That's good. And that's helpful feedback. One that we aimed for. So I do appreciate that. One thing that everyone should and often does think through when evaluating any sort of partnership or getting an outside team to help or come alongside you, especially when you're looking at the church's finances, is you want to be a good steward of those finances, and you want to make sure that you're using them wisely, and you're glorifying God with everything that you do. And cost and investment is often everyone should think through, depending on the church size. Some can stand a little bit more, some can stand a little bit less. And so if you don't mind, could you just walk me through, to someone who is thinking through cost and who is thinking through the investment of, you mentioned outreach before, and so this is not brand new, but when you think about the investment or the outreach, money aspect of it, what kind of led you to say, yeah, this is worth it, right? This is, this is worth going with, when you have to make sure that you're protecting your church's finances so much.
Yeah. And like I said, we're a small to medium sized church. And so money often has been an issue for us, is an issue for us. And we watch it carefully. But I have always been an advocate in our church for spending money to reach people. And I've sometimes had to push for that, among my leadership team. Within my leadership team, I've had to push for that sometimes. And I really feel like if anyone watches this and they're like, man, I don't know if we can afford to spend money on this kind of stuff, I have always felt like we can't afford not to spend money on it. Because I know some people feel like the whole idea of advertising or marketing church feels unspiritual to them. But I always say it this way to my leaders: if people don't know you exist, they surely aren't going to come find you. I mean, we have to, and where I live in the busy suburbs. So you can open up a business around here and everybody can drive right by your business and not know you exist because there's so much distraction. You have to find ways to really put yourself in front of people. And so, so money's definitely an issue for us. One of the things I appreciated about you guys was that the way you broke out the cost of things was kind of, my word for it would be kind of like in modules. Like, we can do these 4 or 5 things for you, but you don't have to buy them all, or you don't have to buy them all right now. And so I was able to choose what I thought was going to be most effective for us and say, you guys can do this piece, and we might still need to do this piece. Like, we might still need to, manage our own website. You guys can do the targeted social media for us. And so the fact that you didn't just, because I talked to some companies that didn't even offer some of the things you offer, but then I talked to other companies that at least theoretically offered all those things, but kind of said you have to buy the whole package. And I couldn't afford the whole package. So I felt like there was this flexibility in how you approached us and what you offered. But as far as spending resources, I know it feels like a sacrifice to churches. It feels like a sacrifice to me. I can do other things with that money, but I want to reach more people.
Yep. This is so good, Pastor Fran, because a lot of churches feel like especially pastors feel like they're in isolation sometimes with these decisions. And they're like, and it feels odd sometimes talking to other churches leaders about this. So you offering your perspective, I'm sure, is people will just find that grateful to know, hey, that's kind of what I've been thinking. I'm just glad that someone else is thinking that same thing too.
I think churches find themselves in this place sometimes where they're not growing, or maybe they're even shrinking. And this is kind of how we were coming out of the pandemic. We lost some people through the pandemic for a variety of reasons. We came out of the pandemic a little smaller. And when you're in that place, it tends to breed that fear of, now you really have to watch your money, right? Because like, we have a building, we have our own building, so we have a mortgage, and the church supports me as a pastor, and we have some other part-time staff. And so you're like, we have to pay all these bills. We can't spend money. And we actually made a decision coming out of the pandemic. We said, if we go down, we're going to go down doing everything we can to reach people and grow. So we sort of, we said, we're going to do this, even if it's the last thing we do, because we're going to reach people. So I know there's that fearful thing about budgets, but you just, and if you have big vision and you can cast that to your people, you probably heard the expression that money or giving follows vision, Thankfully, I have a church community that gets a hold of the vision. And so when we say, hey, we all might have to give a little more in order to reach more people, everybody goes, that's probably worth it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. That's good. I often think in our organization or in others, it's like, well, and we offer guarantees and ways to mitigate this, but the question is marketing or communications and outreach in general, what if we do it and it doesn't work? And the question is, on the flip side, is what if you don't do it? Then like what happens then, right? And so it's the alternative isn't very any positive.
Right. Yeah, I kind of feel like, and I don't know that we as a church have necessarily been good at making ourselves known. We've done different things in the past, but if you don't do any of that, then what?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're in a setting, like I have a friend who planted a church in a small town, and they didn't have to do much advertising because in a town of 10,000 people, everybody knows that you're there, and everybody talks and the word spreads. But that's not my setting. I have to let people know that we're here. And if you don't do that in some concrete way, well, then I guess you really can't, you can't hope for much.
That's good. That's great insight. I know people will love that. That's awesome. In terms of, the effectiveness, because a lot of times this is new, and you pointed out this earlier, like, hey, I'm a pastor. Digital marketing is not my thing. Like, I don't wake up and dream about this every single day. I worry, I'm here to lead my church and pastor my people. And so this is all somewhat new. And so there's this idea of, does it or does it not work? Like like how effective is this? And some people, rightly so, if they don't know a whole lot about any sort of communications or marketing, they worry about the effectiveness of it, right? What are the results that I can expect? And so I was wondering if you could I know we haven't been together that long by any means, but I did want to capture your initial thoughts of what you were expecting in reality versus, and then we could talk about what you actually did, see in terms of effectiveness. If you could just kind of speak to that just a little bit, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So, I didn't really know what to expect. We're fortunate because someone in our church, a couple in our church, really believes in reaching out, and so they're helping to fund what we're doing with you guys. But I didn't really know. So we said yes, we're going to spend some money, but I didn't know really what to expect. I think we went in with the attitude of, we're going to spend some money with Missio Digital. We're going to do our best on our end to provide what's needed and use their services. And then we'll see. And if it doesn't work, we won't do it for very long. But, if it works, then we'll say, hey, this is worthwhile. And so we haven't been doing it very long. But initially, when the ads first started to go out, we started to see people actually fill out the form where they gave us their email and name and phone number and gave us an opportunity to reach back out to them. And then the very first week had people walking in the door that found us through the ads popping up on their social media. And that just blew me away. One of the things that you guys do, and I'm sure other people do it, I just hadn't encountered it, and we wouldn't have known how to do it ourselves, is, you guys call it the Plan Your Visit campaign or whatever, but this idea that our ads don't just pop up in front of people, but it kind of leads them to a place where they can give us their information. And so we can begin to make this connection with them. So, we got that first batch of people who responded. I reached out to them, and some of them actually reached back out to me. And then some of them actually walked in the door the next Sunday morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, we just started to build these bridges with people entirely online. And, and you've heard me say this, it's one thing to put stuff on your social media or say, oh, you're going to run some ads. But however you guys do this, that there's this opportunity for people to actually say, no, I want to start a little connection process with you. I'm going to give you my name and which I'm kind of blown away that people do that, but I'm going to give you my name and my email and my phone number. And then we can reach out to them and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for connecting with us. We're looking forward to you coming. And, that just kind of blew my mind. Like, we would not have known. I don't know how you do it. I don't really want to know how you do it. But we would not have known how to do that. And assuming you guys can keep doing that for us and with us, that's going to be a beautiful thing. We aren't looking, like we're already overwhelmed at this point, just in the last few months, because we have been growing. Even before we started this with you guys, we're overwhelmed with creating places of community for all these new people. So I'm not looking to grow a mega church. I'm not looking for 5,000 new prospects next week. But if what we're doing with you guys brings this steady stream of people discovering us and making connections with us, man, that will be worth every penny that we spend with you guys, and every bit of effort on our end in this relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible. You position this so well. I love how because you're right. It's about community. It's about bridging this bridge. I don't know if that's the best way of saying it, but between online and offline, right? Online social media world to an offline, like this is a real person. Fran is a real pastor who really cares about his community. And there's this cool bridge that this really creates that I love so much. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we have people fill out. They can do it online too, but for some reason in our area, people still prefer when they come to service. Sometimes people fill it out online if they're watching online. Mm-hmm. But we have a connection card, like a lot of churches, stuffed in the back of the seat in front of you, and we say, hey, if you're new, if you would fill out that connection card, that'd be awesome. We can start to put your name and face together, and we can reach out to you with an email or a text and welcome you. We had more connection cards filled out this past Sunday than I think we ever have had on a Sunday. And my leaders afterwards were like, what is going on? Because we've been having a lot of new people, but then we had even more new people. And everybody was like, in fact, one of my leaders looked at me because we've been struggling with, trying to create new small groups and places for people to connect. And she looked at me and she said, we're in trouble. And again, we're not a mega church, but we kind of we're in trouble because these people are coming in. We have to connect with them. So it's a really good problem. If you want to have a good problem, it's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome, Pastor Fran. Well, I want to be respectful of your time but I was going to see, is there any sort of closing thoughts? And you can say no, not really. We've talked about it all. But any other thoughts that we haven't covered that you wanted to speak to, maybe to pastors who are sort of going through this stage with you?
Well, I guess I would say two things. And one has to do with what you guys provide, and the first one, though, doesn't. The first thing I would say to pastors is, before you, don't just think, I want to grow my church. Mm-hmm. First, think about, what are you offering? What is the heart of the kind of gospel that you preach? And how do you see people? And how do you think about loving people? And, really think through whether what you're bringing to people, what your church is seeking to bring to people, looks and sounds and tastes like what Jesus brought to people in the Gospels, with grace and mercy and compassion and love and transformation and relationship and all those things. And then when you can look at what you're doing as a church, what you're preaching, the way your church relates to people, the way your church welcomes and loves people, when you can look at that and say, I love this, then go find Andrew at Missio Digital and give him some money and tell him to help you spread that. That's what I would say.
I love that. Making sure that the main thing is the main thing, right? And that the heart of and the approach of Jesus and what he stood for. Because you know, and you're so right, friend, is that, you know, we can run advertising and marketing until the cows come home, you know, and we can maybe even bring in some more people, but there is a genuineness that, and it's a team effort. And I think I've used that verbiage with you a little bit, and that is, you know, I'm in the South, so, but you'd say you can't put lipstick on a pig. My point is that
Right.
it takes authenticity and genuine love for people to actually make this work. It's not like, let's just put a bunch of money in and hope that we get more people, because they'll never come back. And the goal is to build genuine relationships with people, so that they do find connectivity and connection with you as the church, which is the heartbeat of this whole thing. So that's really good. I love that. I love that a lot. So thank you, Fran. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.